Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I get asked a lot of questions from viewers regarding whether or not fish can taste and fish can smell. And I think it's a very good question, and it's one that anglers would love to be able to spend a day as a bass to be able to taste and smell for themselves. Uh, but it's a question out there that kind of is all over the place because, you hear some people say that they can't taste, they can't smell, other people say that they can, and you have baits that are made specifically geared towards this. A lot of different scents, a lot of different smells, a lot of different, applications that you can apply to your baits to hopefully appeal to the fish's senses even better. And one of the things that I walked away from the Berkeley convention that I was at down in Houston, Texas, was that fish's senses, specifically their taste and their smell, are one of the things that they use the most. And they have scientifically shown this in their labs. So, for those of you out there that are kind of questioning, it is important for you to recognize a couple of things. One, that water soluble objects or products are what those fish can pick up, meaning if it's an oil based object, they cannot actually sense that. They don't pick that up. So from that standpoint, if you are looking at applying scents or using products, my understanding based on the conversation that uh, I was engaged in was that if it's an oil-based product, that's something that won't have any impact really on the fish. If it is something that's water-based, that's where you do in fact have the fish having the ability to pick up that scent or that taste. It's important to recognize that fish don't have hands, right? So fish, in order for them to try to determine if an object is actual food or not, they have to put it in their mouth. That's where they pick up the majority of that scent, the majority of that taste, and they can determine if the object is a rock and therefore they don't want to eat it, or maybe it's a crayfish or a shad and they actually do want to eat it. But they have to put the object in their mouth. At that point, that's where they can start to determine whether or not it is something they should swallow or not. And that's where a lot of, the different products make a big difference. So obviously if a fish puts the bait in their mouth, they can determine, or they that is enough time for the angler to determine whether or not they should set the hook, right? Like you might feel the fish put it in their mouth, and at that point it may take them a split second, or a second or two or five or six to determine if they want to eat it. But as soon as they put it in their mouth, that gives the angler opportunity to set the hook. Now, I will say, and I think a lot of anglers out there would agree, that when sight fishing for bass, whether that is on a bed or whether that is when you see a fish cruising down the bank, it is not uncommon at all for that fish to eat your bait and then spit it out without you ever feeling that fish bite, or doing it so fast that the angler can't even react to the point of setting the hook. That is a function of the fish taking the bait in, determining they don't want it, and therefore not having any interest in actually swallowing that bait. So it's very important for us to increase the amount of time that it takes for that fish to hold it and determine what that product is. So if you've got baits out there where the fish think that your bait smells or tastes real, the likelihood is it will either hold it longer before they spit it out because they're trying to decipher and they're a little bit more unsure, or they're actually going to try to swallow it. A lot of times I feel like the bite that we feel isn't them putting it in their mouth. It's actually when they're trying to get it down into their crushers and into their gullet. That's when we feel the real good thump. So from that standpoint, it's almost like there's a false bite even though they've got it, and then we actually feel them trying to swallow it in some instances, and that's where we feel the bite. The point here is it is very important to increase the amount of time that that bait is in the fish's mouth without them spitting it out, because in most cases you get one chance. And if that fish holds it for an extra second, that then means you have an extra second to determine that a fish has bit your bait and that you can then set the hook. But it's important for the viewers out there to understand that not all scents, even though you may smell them great, not all scents are actually determinable or picked up by the fish. So if if there are some companies out there that you want to look into based on scent, or some products out there, it's something that you might want to evaluate before determining if it's a product that you want to buy or not. But I can assure you that fish can smell and they can taste, and that is one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the several days down in Houston, was that fish 100% can, and the more that object smells real or tastes real, the greater the likelihood is the angler will catch that fish. So it's important to recognize that. The other thing to note is how quickly the fish become accustomed to a certain bait or a certain taste or a certain smell. And from that standpoint, they definitely kind of learn their lesson. The Berkeley labs have found that fish 100% will get accustomed to certain baits, and it does not take them that long. So that also gives us good reason to think about either changing scents on a bait, changing shapes on a bait, or changing baits or even colors all around. Because the more you can change it and give those fish a different presentation, the more likely is that you'll find one that they are willing to bite. And if you've missed a fish on one bait, a lot of times it's probably why your follow-up baits actually generate the second strike, because they learned from that first go around that maybe they don't want to eat that bait. So anyways, I thought I'd share that with you because I get the question all the time. It's a question I have all the time. Do the fish actually smell you? Does it make, if you go and you get sunscreen on your hands, will that have an effect? And one of the things that the labs have found is that sunscreen is a major deterrent. They do testing on all different scents, all different objects, different things out there to see what bass respond to. And there are a lot of different substances that they do not like. Sunscreen is one of them. So be careful with applying your sunscreen on your hands or applying it. One of the things that I've always chosen to stay away from was the spray on sunscreen, because a lot of times, depending how the wind is blowing, those particles will actually land inside of the boat as well, which is not a good thing if it's getting on your bait, according to the Berkeley labs. And they've done the research. I'm going to agree with them on that and believe and trust in what they say, because it's their livelihood. They need to make products that work versus kind of selling products or just trying to sell anglers on products that don't actually work. But 100% fish smell, fish can taste, and we need to take that into account next time we go out fishing. Let me know in the comment section. Do you have some other questions? I got a lot of good information from that I could probably share and answer some of those questions. So if questions like this are something that interests you, put it in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get back to you on that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. New video coming out tomorrow.